The stars vanished. One moment Orion Prime's Grand Council chamber glittered with the brilliance of its panoramic viewport, showing the sweep of stars across the Perseus arm. The next, darkness fell, blotting them out as something vast slid into orbit. Gasps rippled through the alien delegates. A dozen species stood frozen, mandibles twitching, feathers puffing, or eyes narrowing as a shadow the size of a continent descended over the station. The Carthari warship, the Eternal Dominion, eclipsed light itself. Even through layers of shielded glass, its presence pressed down like a physical weight, a reminder of scale meant to crush resistance before a word was spoken. "By the void," one alien chancellor whispered, his scaled hands trembling. Others dropped to their knees, not in worship, but in fear. At the central dais, Admiral Helena Stroud remained standing. The polished black of her uniform reflected the viewport's faint light, but her gaze was steady, eyes locked on the shape outside. She refused to look small. The chamber doors boomed open. High Warlord Veilcor entered like a storm. He stood nearly 3 meters tall, armored in blackened plates that gleamed with shifting energy. His crest rose like blades of obsidian, his eyes burning amber. Flanked by 2 honor guards, he strode with deliberate weight until every step echoed through the silence. The council fell into hushed awe. Veilcor did not bow. He didn't even glance at the other delegations. His gaze fixed immediately on Helena, and when he smiled, the room seemed to grow colder. "Human," he said, his voice layered with a metallic resonance that carried across the chamber without amplification. "You stand in a place that is not yours, before powers you cannot fathom. The Dominion has tolerated your kind's trespass among the stars long enough. Today you kneel, or you burn." A murmur ran through the alien assembly. Some turned toward Helena with pity, others with disdain. Humanity was young, untested, fragile compared to empires that had ruled millennia. They expected her to falter. Helena took a measured breath, then spoke. "We bow to no one, Warlord." Her voice was calm, her tone devoid of theatrics, but it carried a conviction that cut through the chamber like a blade. "Least of all to those who mistake intimidation for respect." The words struck like a slap. Delegates stiffened. Veilcor's expression shifted from amusement to something darker, though his smile lingered. "You dare!" He stepped closer, his armored boots ringing against the chamber floor. "Your ships are rust compared to ours. Your colony's fragile glass. Do you think stubbornness will shield you when the stars themselves answer to our firepower?" Helena's reply was ice. "I think fear is the crutch of the arrogant. And I've never needed a crutch." The silence that followed was almost unbearable. Alien representatives exchanged frantic looks. Some muttered in disbelief. A feathered envoy from the Shura bent toward his neighbor and hissed, "She condemns her entire species." But Helena stood unflinching. Veilcor finally laughed, a low, guttural sound like grinding metal. He spread his arms as though presenting a gift. "Very well, then. Humanity will be taught the lesson all lesser species learn. Submit within 1 rotation of your station star, or witness the annihilation of your fleets, your colonies, and your homeworld itself." He turned on his heel and left the chamber, his guards in lockstep. The great doors slammed shut behind him, leaving the room echoing with the weight of his threat. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then, the council erupted. Delegates shouted over one another. Some cried out for reason, urging humanity to surrender, to avoid the Dominion's wrath. Others sneered, calling humanity foolish, reckless, suicidal. A few, quieter voices, murmured admiration, but none dared speak it too loud. Helena did not argue with them. She listened, face still, until the tide of voices became meaningless noise. Finally, she turned without a word and left the hall. The private council chamber was smaller, circular, lined with holographic displays of ships, fleets, and star maps. Her senior officers waited, uniforms crisp, eyes tense. As she entered, murmurs ceased. "Admiral," Captain Reyes said, his voice tight. "We all heard the Warlord. If they unleash even a fraction of that fleet—" "They won't," another officer snapped, Commander Imani. "They'll crush us completely. You've seen their numbers. A heated argument flared, whether to sue for peace, retreat, or attempt to fight. Voices rose, clashing in fear and defiance. Helena raised a hand. The room fell silent. "Sit," she said simply. They obeyed. She walked to the central table, its projection casting the looming shadow of the Carthari fleet across her face. For a moment she studied it. Then she spoke, quiet but steady. "They think we are weak because they see what we allow them to see. They've mistaken caution for incapacity. That is their error, not ours." Reyes frowned. "With respect, Admiral, error or not, their ships dwarf ours. Even combined, our colonies can't match. We don't need to match them." She cut him off gently, but firmly. "War is not about mirrors. It's about balance. And balance is found through leverage." Imani leaned forward. "You mean?" "Yes," Helena said. Her gaze swept across them all. "The Aegis Project. It's time." Shock rippled around the table. The officers exchanged glances, some with disbelief, some with grim satisfaction. The Aegis-class dreadnoughts were more rumor than fact, a secret whispered among command circles, dismissed by outsiders as impossible for humanity to build. "You're certain?" Reyes asked. "Once we reveal them, there's no going back. The galaxy will know." Helena's eyes were hard. "The galaxy must know. If we hide in shadows, we are nothing more than prey. It's time to step into the light, and remind them humans were never prey to begin with." Silence followed, heavy and final. The decision was made. Later, alone, Helena stood again before the viewport. The shadow of the Eternal Dominion still loomed outside, its hull etched with symbols that spoke of centuries of dominance. Around it, smaller Carthari ships drifted like sharks around a leviathan. She let the weight of it settle against her chest, not as fear, but as fuel. Humanity had fought worse odds before, on Earth, against itself, through every war and disaster that had threatened extinction. This was no different. Survival had always been their nature. Defiance had always been their strength. Her reflection stared back at her in the glass, sharp eyes, silvering hair pulled tight, shoulders squared. Not invincible, but unbroken. "They think we're prey," she whispered to the silence. "Let's remind them what hunters look like." And far across the void, in the Perseus rift, hidden ships stirred awake. The council reconvened at dawn by station time, but no one's voice carried the same authority as before. Fear lingered, heavy as smoke. Delegates filed into their seats, whispering among themselves about the Dominion's ultimatum. The viewport above them showed the Carthari fleet still holding orbit, silent and immense, as though daring anyone to defy it. Admiral Helena Stroud entered without ceremony. Her uniform was pressed, her stride steady, but the air shifted when she crossed the chamber. Whispers rose and fell like waves. The human had not bowed yesterday. What would she do now? The Chancellor called the session to order, his long fingers tapping against the dais. "Admiral Stroud, before this council lies the choice of your people. Surrender will preserve your colonies. Resistance will condemn them. Speak your answer." The chamber quieted. Even the air seemed to still. Helena looked up at the viewport. The Eternal Dominion hovered like a blade at humanity's throat. Then she faced the Chancellor. "Earth does not kneel," she said. Gasps rippled through the chamber. A feathered envoy from the Shura covered his beak with trembling wings. A scaled representative from the Zaith hissed in disgust. Others muttered that the humans had doomed themselves. And then, laughter filled the hall. High Warlord Veilcor rose from his seat at the far side, his armored shoulders gleaming under the lights. He stepped forward, voice carrying without effort. "Defiance from children," he said, lips curling into a cruel smile. "Admiral, this is your last moment to speak with dignity. Refuse us again, and you will not be remembered as bold. Only as foolish." Helena met his gaze evenly. "We refuse." The silence that followed was complete. Veilcor let the moment stretch, then threw back his head and laughed again, the sound grinding like broken stone. "So be it. When your fleets burn, when your worlds scream, Perhaps then the galaxy will learn what folly it is to stand against the Dominion. He turned sharply and strode out, his guards trailing behind. The chamber doors sealed with a boom that echoed long after he was gone. Back in her war room, Helena stood with her officers. The holographic table between them displayed a live feed of the Carthari formation. Ships larger than cities drifted in a precise grid, their weapons arrays glowing faintly like suns in miniature. "They're parading," Captain Reyes muttered, jaw tight. "Showing the council what's waiting for us." Commander Imani crossed her arms. "It's working. Most of the delegates think we're finished." "Let them think it," Helena said. She pressed the control, and the display shifted. Orion Prime vanished, replaced by a darker region of space. The Perseus Rift spread across the map, an expanse of collapsed stars and volatile nebulae. At its center, a cluster of icons pulsed faintly, each tagged with a coded designation. Her officers stared. Reyes exhaled slowly. The Aegis class. Even in projection, the dreadnoughts carried presence. Sleek, angular hulls shimmered with adaptive plating. Railgun batteries lined their spines like teeth. Gravity drives pulsed at their cores, capable of bending the void itself for both movement and weaponry. They were smaller than Carthari dreadnoughts, but dense with innovations no one else had risked. Imani shook her head in disbelief. "How long have they been operational?" "Long enough," Helena said. Lieutenant Harrow, the youngest at the table, leaned forward. His eyes were wide but determined. "Admiral, with respect, even these can't match their numbers. The Carthari could still overwhelm us by sheer mass." Helena nodded once. "Numbers do not win wars. Strategy does." Her gaze swept the room. "The Dominion builds for fear. Size. Intimidation. Their ships are symbols as much as weapons. Ours are built for war. For precision. For survival. That is the difference." Silence followed, but it was a silence filled with weight, not doubt. Hours later, far from Orion Prime, the Perseus Rift stirred. From the roiling haze of nebula storms, one by one, the Aegis-class dreadnoughts emerged. The Resolute led the formation, its matte black hull absorbing the rift's violent light. Behind it came the Vanguard, the Eclipse, the Sovereign, and more. Their drives flared, steady and silent, as though they were predators finally stepping into open ground. Inside the rift, human crews moved with precision. Orders crackled across secure channels. Systems powered up in sequence, engines humming with energy strong enough to warp gravity wells. The fleet aligned in perfect formation, awaiting only one command. That command came from Helena, standing aboard the Resolute's command deck. "Transmit fleet status to Orion Prime," she said. "Aye, Admiral," a comms officer replied. Moments later, across the galaxy, the council chamber's central holofeed flickered. Delegates stared as the image resolved into the human fleet, 12 dreadnoughts lined in flawless symmetry, their silhouettes sleek and bristling with weapons no alien had ever seen. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the chamber erupted. "This is impossible," a Zaith delegate hissed. "They built these in secret?" Another gasped. "Humans were not supposed to have." Whispers collided in disbelief. Shock spread like fire. Helena's voice cut through them, broadcast across the hall. "You wanted our answer. Here it is. Humanity does not kneel. Humanity stands." On the far side of the chamber, Veilcor rose again. His expression twisted into mockery. He gestured at the holofeed, his laughter sharp and cutting. "These? Toys dressed as warships. Do you truly think a handful of untested vessels will stand against the Dominion?" Helena's reply was cold steel. "Test them. If you dare." On the Resolute, Helena lowered the transmission feed and let her hands rest on the edge of the command table. Around her, officers stood straighter, the fire of resolve burning in their eyes. Doubt had been replaced with purpose. The fleet was no longer a secret. The galaxy had seen what humanity had forged. The Dominion laughed, but Helena did not care. Laughter had never stopped a bullet, never deflected a railgun round, never held back gravity itself. "Signal the fleet," she ordered quietly. "We move to the rift edge. If they want to test us, we'll meet them on ground of our choosing." "Aye, Admiral," the helmsman replied. The dreadnoughts shifted as one, engines flaring. Beyond the viewport, the rift stretched before them, storm-racked, unpredictable, treacherous to navigate. Perfect for the kind of war humanity had always fought best. As the stars blurred into motion, Helena allowed herself a single thought. They thought humanity fragile. They thought humans would bow. But today, the galaxy had glimpsed the truth. And tomorrow, it would learn it. The fleet had gathered. In the void above Titan's orbit, thousands of alien vessels formed an armada that stretched like a storm cloud across the stars. Their hulls bristled with cannons and shimmering energy arrays. Dozens of species, once rivals, had united under a single banner: subdue humanity before its unchecked rise threatened the order of the galaxy. On Prometheus, Captain Alara Vega stood in the command chamber, surrounded by the holographic projection of the incoming armada. The Zorith flagship loomed largest, a massive construct shaped like a serrated blade. At its center was the unmistakable mark of Lord Koresh, commander of the Coalition fleet. "They're deploying intimidation tactics," said Commander Imani, her tone sharp but controlled. "Their ships are maintaining wide formation, trying to box us in." Alara's gaze swept across the display. Their fleet was smaller, far smaller. 20 human warships, every one a product of designs that had never left Earth's defense networks. No alien had ever seen them in combat. No human had ever tested them against a force of this magnitude. And that was the point. "Let them look," Alara said quietly. The calm crackled, and a deep, resonant voice filled the chamber. "This is Lord Koresh of the Zorith Dominion. Humanity, your defiance ends today. You will surrender your weapons, your worlds, and your ambitions, or you will be erased." The bridge fell silent. Every officer turned toward Alara. She leaned forward, resting her hands on the console, and answered. "Lord Koresh, you assembled 1,000 ships because you thought we would kneel. But here's the truth, you came here to impress us with your battleships. What you didn't realize is that you're the ones about to be impressed." Koresh's laugh rolled through the channel, dripping contempt. "You believe 20 vessels stand against the weight of empires? Arrogance beyond comprehension." "Not arrogance," Alara said, her voice steel. "Experience." She raised her hand. "Bring the fleet online." One by one, the human ships revealed themselves fully. Energy matrices glowed across their hulls, forming geometric lattices that pulsed with impossible intensity. To alien eyes, they looked less like machines and more like fragments of stars held in rigid shape. Prometheus's engines ignited, but no ordinary thrusters burned. Instead, a faint ripple distorted the space behind it, bending light as if the void itself were being dragged into motion. The alien channels erupted with confusion. Dozens of voices in different tongues echoed across open frequencies. "What is that drive signature? No thermal emissions. How is it moving? The hull is absorbing our scans," Koresh snarled. "Tricks. Nothing more." Alara didn't wait. "Fire demonstration volley. Sector 6. A ripple of commands shot through the fleet. Prometheus's main batteries pivoted and unleashed beams of white-blue light. They didn't streak across space like conventional weapons. They simply arrived at their targets. A dozen alien cruisers in the outer ring of the Coalition fleet erupted silently into fragments, their shields bypassed as though they weren't there at all. The comm channels fell silent. Commander Imani's lips curled into the faintest smirk. "That should answer their scans." Koresh's voice returned, colder now. "You've hidden your teeth. Impressive but futile. Numbers will bury you." Alara let him speak. She gestured again, and the fleet reconfigured into a pattern that no alien admiral would recognize. It wasn't a wall, or a wedge, or a crescent. The ships aligned into a spiraling lattice, threads of light weaving between them. As the formation locked, a low hum filled the human vessels, a resonance that vibrated in bone and steel alike. Then the space between them began to distort. On the alien sensors, the human fleet vanished. What replaced it was a massive, rotating construct of gravitational anomalies and energy fields, a war machine that had no right to exist outside theoretical equations. "This isn't possible," muttered one alien voice over open comms. Koresh barked orders, desperate now. "All ships forward! Break them before they—" Too late. The human fleet fired in unison. Not beams, not projectiles, but controlled collapses of space itself. Alien dreadnoughts crumpled like paper under invisible hands. Entire squadrons were erased, their matter folded into nothingness. On the bridge of Prometheus, silence reigned but for the steady rhythm of reports. "Enemy squadron eliminated. Sector clear. Casualties 0. Imani exhaled. They thought size would matter. They never understood efficiency. Alara nodded, eyes fixed on the display. But victory wasn't guaranteed yet. Numbers remained overwhelming, and Koresh's fleet fought with desperation. The Zorith flagships surged forward, weapons unleashing a storm of energy. Unlike its lesser vessels, the flagship's shields adapted quickly, bending under the human assault but refusing to break. "Direct hit on forward plates," a lieutenant called out. "Shields holding, but they're testing limits." Koresh's voice thundered through the comm again, manic with fury. "You are clever humans. Dangerous. But you will not survive me." Alara's reply was calm, deliberate. "Then let's settle this, Koresh. One flagship against another." The bridge crew stiffened. Imani shot her a sharp look. "Captain." But Alara only gave a slight shake of her head. "We end this clean." The Prometheus surged forward, cutting through the chaos. Alien ships swarmed, but were torn apart by escort fire. The human flagship locked on the Zorith dreadnought. Their duel shook the void. Koresh's weapons hammered with relentless power, each blast tearing chunks of armor from the Prometheus. But Alara's crew answered with precision strikes, each beam driving deeper into the Zoritha's defenses. For long minutes, it was stalemate. Sparks rained across the human bridge. Warning lights flared. Alara gripped the console, refusing to falter. Then an idea crystallized. She keyed the channel. "Imani, redirect main core output to the lattice array. Overload sequence." Imani hesitated only a second, then nodded. "Yes, Captain." The ship's hum deepened into a roar. Power surged into the lattice, spilling across the hull in dazzling arcs. For an instant, Prometheus glowed like a newborn sun. Alara whispered, "Now." The ship unleashed its core in a single focused pulse. Space around the Zorith flagship twisted violently. The dreadnought's hull screamed, metal bending against impossible forces, until it collapsed inward, a starship crushed into a fragment of singularity. Silence. Then cheers erupted across the human fleet. Alien calms broke into chaos, fear, disbelief, retreat orders spilling across frequencies. Alara allowed herself one deep breath. "Transmit message to all channels," she said. "Tell them this: humanity is not a world to be conquered. We are a force to be reckoned with. Let today be proof." Imani smiled grimly. "I think they got the message already." As the remnants of the alien armada scattered into the void, Prometheus and her fleet held position. Outnumbered, outgunned, yet unbroken. Humanity had been underestimated for the last time.